There we go. We have a talented group of people at this church. Each week, our times of worship are so meaningful. We have opportunities just to capture really the heart of what we're doing as a church right now, even in music here. As we're saying, if we come together in this, we can do something we could never do alone. If we can reimagine what change could look like for not only this city, but this world, we can be a part of it. And you might push back and say, Pastor, we're a local church in Montreal. There's about 900 of us. How can we change the world? 12 guys did. I'm just saying. 12 guys did. I'm just thankful. Every weekend I have the opportunity to partner with everybody else on stage here who's ministering, trying to create moments that you can find God and experience just the presence of God. And, I'm just so thankful for Jonathan Mann, our weekend team leader, who does so much of the work towards what happens up here each week. And I know you think it's Pastor Joe and I that do all of this, but neither of us have that kind of talent, do we, bro? Well, hey, everybody form a fist. Do not hit anybody, but turn to someone next to you and give them a fist bump and say, re.Imagine. That's what we are all about right now here at Evangel. If you missed last week's message, I would encourage you to go to our website and listen to it online, as we kind of gave an overview of this campaign that we're going to be a part of for the next 3 years in this church. This week, Pastor Normand Chalabois is going to come up in a few minutes, and he's going to join me. And you're going to hear from this man who's going to be a big part of our first phase as we launch Evangel en Français here in Montreal. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. Next week, Pastor David Hazard will be with me. And he's going to be sharing. He's been working on re.Imagine for the last year with us. And so he's going to be sharing a little bit. And then on the 17th of March, we're going to have actually the architect who's working on our building come and share with us, because he's going to share about the missional. He's a Christian man from a Pentecostal church and a POC church just like us, who only designs churches that are interested in reaching their community. He actually interviewed us whether he would even be a part of what we're doing here, only if we were interested in reaching our community. So I want you to see a little bit of what God's doing behind the scenes and what's led us to this point. But this morning, just briefly, I want to talk to you about what drives your life and what drives the life of this church. It's worth considering what drives you. For some people, money drives them. For some others, it's their security or ego or their ambition that drives them. For some people, it's something else altogether. For some churches, it's tradition that drives them, or making a budget that drives them, or maybe even just spiritual consumerism. They're driven to just make moments that will meet needs of consumers who just want to consume. Or sometimes it's something else. And I want to talk to you about the something else, and it's found in Matthew chapter 9. The latter part of Matthew chapter 9, Matthew gives us an account of what Jesus is doing and with his mission, and then we get recorded the words of Jesus here. In Matthew chapter 9, it says this: Jesus went through all the towns and the villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. That's a word to be noted. He saw compassion on them because they were, listen to this, harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to the disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, or another translation says, pray to the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. Jesus' life is driven by love. He's a man on a mission. And he encounters brokenness everywhere he goes. And wherever Jesus goes, something happens. He touches a leper that nobody else will touch. He sees a blind man reduced to begging on the side of the road, and he notices him and he walks towards him. A paralyzed man that's so desperate to get to Jesus that his friends would rip a hole in the roof of a house and lower him down next to Jesus. Especially people who didn't have enough money for health care. They would come to him with their children that were sick or tormented, and he'd set them free and heal them. People who were alone and depressed and anxious and afraid, they came to Jesus and they said, Jesus, do you notice us? Can you help us? And it's beautiful because Matthew said he had compassion on them. Not judgment for their circumstances in life, not a superiority, not a disdain, not indifference, but he had compassion on them. He meets an orphan. There's a poor woman who's been forced into prostitution. There's a Pharisee who wants to love God, but he's all confused about how to get there, and Jesus takes time with them. There's a Roman centurion that everybody hates, but Jesus gives them an audience. There's a widow that has no money and nobody notices her anymore, but Jesus did. There's a rich young ruler who everybody envies him, but Jesus knows what's going on in his heart. See, I love that about Jesus. He scratches below the surface and he gets right to the heart of the matter. He sees exactly what's going on in people's lives. And it's interesting because it says he had compassion on them because they were harassed, helpless, and sheep without shepherds. It's interesting. He comes and he heals them and he gives them the story of the kingdom of God. That now that Jesus has come, those who feel unqualified to know God can know God. Because of his grace, now your sins can be forgiven. Because of grace, your guilt can be removed. Because of grace, those things that control you can be set free from. You can have, friend, hear me this morning, you can have a fresh start every morning. That's the power of the gospel. You here this morning can have a fresh start every morning. Boy, if I was in a church, someone would say, amen. Oh, I am. Okay, good. Well, see, what he promises is all of a sudden you can have a heavenly Father that watches over you when you sleep at night. You can have a family to belong to. You can have a Holy Spirit that will guide you. You can have a purpose that will inspire you. You can have eternity to look forward to. You can have a hope because Christ came. And Jesus talked about this, and he walked around, and it says in Matthew that he went to the towns and the villages. It's interesting that Matthew mentions this. Don't miss this. He mentions villages because villages were never really in the historical record much because they were a very insignificant small group of people. Matthew's letting us know that there was no number too insignificant for Jesus. He brought the message to anyone, everyone. Wherever he found brokenness, he went towards it. And then finally one day, as he sees so much hurt around him, he kind of turns to his disciple and he says, I can't stand going on like this. Not another day like this. I can't stand it. People trapped in their lives with a God alone and broken, confused. Their fear, their isolation, their pain. It's breaking my heart. Don't you see it, guys? Can't you see how plentiful the harvest is? Doesn't it disturb you also? Guys, we can't be satisfied in our own little community with our own little friends. We can't be satisfied anymore because we're not here for us, guys. We're not here for us, we're here for them. And Jesus says right in the middle of it that they're sheep without shepherds. They're harassed, they're helpless, they're alone. That's what re.Imagine's all about. It's a holy discontentment with the status quo. It's opening our eyes up to the brokenness around us and saying, enough. It's the fact that we are people who carry the truth, the kernel of the gospel in our lives, and we aren't prepared to just keep it to ourselves. That's why we're partnering and we're walking towards brokenness. And I invite you to turn your attention to the center screen as I introduce you to International Justice Mission, who we're going to be partnering with as part of our re.Imagine campaign in phase 1. Please watch the center screen.
NBC News In Depth tonight, a rare glimpse into a world both horrible and heartbreaking. Here is some of what NBC's Chris Hansen has uncovered in a Dateline NBC investigation.
Poverty is no excuse for forcing children into prostitution, says Gary Haugen, who runs a U.S.-based human rights group, International Justice Mission.
The International Justice Mission.
The International Justice Mission.
International Justice Mission.
International Justice Mission.
The thing that keeps them there is violence, is terror,
We will kill you. We will beat you. The actual leverage impact of rule of law is miraculous. All you need to do is establish a credible deterrent, and the people who once were slave masters decide they need to get out of that business.
What do the papers mean? Freedom.
Oh, you doing over here? Bill 30 and 2 girls?
God knows what their future would have been. That's what we're all about. That's the impact that we are having by rescuing children out of those dark, evil places and seeing them mature and grow, be educated, be free.
So we're partnering with this mission because we're saying enough. We're going to participate in setting some girls free from brothels around the world. What we give not only sets them free and gives them health care, counseling, and spiritual care, it gives them a trade, sets them up that they never get trapped back in it, and it also releases the law on those who actually entrap them in the first place. International Justice Mission goes after those who are perpetrating this. It's saying enough to injustice in this world. We've got to draw a line somewhere. Then we're also going to part with a ministry called Village of Hope in Zambia, where we're going to go and we're going to build an orphanage. We're going to build a building that will house orphans because of HIV positive, HIV AIDS. Go ahead and run it. Go ahead and run it, guys. HIV AIDS. And here's some of this is the actual orphanage that we're going to be a part of, and we're going to construct a house for children who have been orphaned. And I'm going to invite part of you at Evangel to go and build it. In fact, you can even talk to Pastor Joe to get your name on a list that says, I want to go there and I want to roll up my sleeves and I want to build this building. But we want to invite you in phase 1 to give to that, to be a part of giving to those children, to be able to build that home. See, it's about this mission and vision that God has given us, that Jesus has given us as a people. Here's the thing though, the harvest is so enormous. And the workers are few, Jesus says. And at that point, he was the only worker. And so he says to his followers, pray that the Lord of the harvest, that he would bring a harvest. God is the one who works in human lives. Pray that the Lord of the harvest will send out what? Workers. What do workers do? I think we have a largely white-collar crowd here because most people don't realize that workers work. You roll up your sleeves and you get to work. You do the hard work. He doesn't say send consultants or experts or spectators, or he doesn't say send consumers or CEOs. He says send workers. Jesus said, I go about doing the work of my Father. In John chapter 9, he said this, as long as it is day, we must do the work of him who has sent me. It's really simple, friends. Anybody can be a worker. Anybody can listen and notice and encourage and pray and share and give and serve and come alongside of and witness and love. He says, guys, pray that spiritual workers will go out. Pray that kingdom workers will go out, because it's breaking my heart to see all the lostness and brokenness around me. The interesting thing is, he says, pray, and then what happens in the very next verse? Matthew chapter 10, verse 1. The very people who pray the prayer, God sends them. It's a dangerous prayer to pray. Pray, God, I pray that you would send workers. Well, let's start with you, Jonathan. Oh, I was meaning I'm praying for other people to go. I love this about God. He begins to mobilize his workforce right away, and he sends his own disciples. See, this is crucial. We need to recognize with Jesus had a mission, and then he gave it a church. He didn't create a church and then give it a mission. You see, sometimes we put the cart before the horse. Some people think church is a place that kind of meets our needs. It's a place where we cloister. We have a missions department that kind of goes out and does missional work. And we have a group of people in the church that go out and meet some needs. No. We get it all backwards. Jesus had a mission and he gave it a church. He gave it a church, facilitating it. I wonder today, wouldn't it be cool if Jesus was like physically present right with us this morning? Wouldn't that be neat? What if he was here today? Just imagine for a minute with me. He was here today and he said, come on guys, let's do a walk around Montreal. You imagine he walked us down St. Catherine Street. He walked us through, up the Côte de Neige area, over to NDG, maybe into the east side of Montreal, Hochelaga area, maybe to the west side of Montreal. If he walked us all around, do you think if Jesus finished that walk and we came back in here, he'd tap us on the shoulder and say, mission accomplished? I think his heart would be broken. He'd see the state of confusion in this city, the isolation, the anger that entangles people's lives. He'd see the gap between the rich and poor getting wider and wider and more damaging and hurtful all the more. He'd see people that are trapped in lifestyles that they can't get out of, addictive lifestyles. He'd see men trapped in pornography. He'd see addictions on the rise. He'd see isolation. I think he'd see fear-ridden neighborhoods. I think he'd see oppressed and depressed schools. I think he'd see anxious college students wondering if they can make it in life. I think he'd see high school dropouts that fear that they won't have a future. I think he'd see people gripped, lonely retirees, and people, workaholic parents, and he'd see people gripped by fear, the fear of failure, the fear they won't have enough money, the fear that they'll be all alone, the fear of death. And then he'd see his church, the hope of the world. He's gifted with his Holy Spirit to guide them. He's given them the scriptures to root them and ground them. He's graced them with forgiveness for each new day. I think then he'd see his church, and I believe the church is the hope of the world, friends. I do. It is God's redemptive body he places here in Montreal. Why? To change a city. To change a city. To transform a city. So I want to invite Pastor Normand Chalabois to join me on the stage, if he would. And why don't you put your hands together and welcome Pastor Normand. Pastor Normand's been in ministry now for 14 years. These are nice chairs. Okay, get used to this.
Better than this morning.
He's been ministering for 14 years, but he has quite a story, and I want you to hear a bit of his story and get to know him. And then I think you'll clearly understand why I believe we as a church, launching a French church in the city to reach people far from God, I believe that God has sent him our way with that express purpose in mind. So Pastor Normand, tell us a little bit of your story. Start right back in your childhood. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what the conditions were like.
Merci. Bon matin, bonjour, good morning. Just before I go to my testimony, I just want to say a huge thanks to all of you. You're so... you just welcome me and my family so well. We feel like it's our family. You know, we were in Ville-la-Salle for 25 years at the same church. So to remove to another church, it's something special. And we feel like just welcome, and this is your home, Norm. And just be happy with us. And we are so, you know, it's cool to have you. So thank you very much, everyone. And it's such a joy for me and Dominic and the kids to be a part of this re.Imagine. This is a nice vision. Do you think it's a nice vision? Yeah? Thank you very much. You know, I grew up in a little city called Ville-Saint-Pierre. Do you know where is Ville-Saint-Pierre? It's a little town and probably less than 5,000 people in there. So today is a part of Lachine with all the fusion with the city. But when I was a little kid, I grew up in that city, and my dad was the Zamboni guy at the arena, you know, the janitor, the cleaner of the hockey rooms and everything. And he was also a hockey player in the city, and he was also a guy who played lacrosse, you know. Oui. So I grew up in a city who everybody knows our family pretty well, because my dad and also I have a lot of my family, they were in politics in the city. Well, politics is not good now, but They were, So, so I grew up in that kind of city. Grew up in a broken family. I mean, my mom was so sweet, a very good mom. But my dad was
A drug addict.
a drug addict, sorry. Was a drug addict, and he was not really present like a good dad, And so I live a part of my all the, the 0 to 17 with a huge lack of love from my dad, a huge lack of self-esteem. When your dad is not there to encourage you, to push you in your life and be there, it's tough. And I was the oldest one in the family. I have a young brother, 5 years younger than me, and I was taking care of him because he was not there. So I was very frustrated about my dad, and why he just led us like this. And I heard a lot of story in the city of Ville-Saint-Pierre because he was going on different women all the time. So, it was really tough when you have people who just point to you when you walk in your home city. And they not mock you, but they know your dad is not a good man. And so I grew up in that kind of family. So what happened in me, it's developing in me a lot of frustration, rebellion, violence, lots of violence, just because I have a lack of love. And,
So when you were 12, something significant happened. You kind of confronted your dad.
Yeah.
You were a hockey player. You actually played for Team Canada for a while as goalie and wanted to be a professional hockey player.
Yeah.
That wasn't to be.
No.
Lots of frustration was coming, but you confronted your dad when you were 12.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, in the lobby of my house, just in the entrance, I'm taller than my dad. My dad is 5'9". I was like probably almost 6 at that time. Hockey player, strong enough to grab my dad by the neck one day and said to my dad all the why. Why are you doing that to our family? Why are you not present on my hockey game? Just for that.
Yeah.
Why you don't take care and bring money? You spend all your money, all the money of family, and your drugs and your party and your stuff. Why? I was very frustrated about that. Why are you using drugs and you destroy our family and everything? So, and I remember a couple words he said to me that morning, but one word touched me. He said, "Norm, you don't understand. Drugs, when you take drugs, you became addicted and you don't understand you don't understand the way I feel, My dad told me that. So he said, I have so much problem with the drugs and I can't quit drugs and everything. So that's why I do, we have a lot of problem. So I remember that little word, you don't understand because you're not taking drugs. So I went out to the house that day, go to see one of my friends, and to try to understand my dad, I just started to use drug. So that morning at the age of 12, in the park in Ville-Saint-Pierre, just started my first marijuana and, So, I'm a very artistic person. Even if I was a kid, I love painting, I love drawing.
Yeah.
I love music a lot. So guys, this morning, yeah, it's good. And I really love music and everything artistic. So when I started to use that drug, for me it was like a perfect fit. Drugs and dreaming and all that stuff. For me it was like, oh, it's cool, But also I was taking drug to
dull the pain in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have in me.
Yeah.
And more I grow, more pain I have, so more drug I took. And, and all my rebellion, my frustration go higher and higher. You took drugs, you became a little bit, different. And it was a tough, I start like this, drugs, just because my dad, he said to me this. But so after that, and same time, I have a problem in my school, high school where I go. So they kicked me out of the high school because, just a little fight with my teacher.
Yeah.
something, usual.
Which you should never do.
No, it's not true. It was not a fight. It was just like something.
We'll keep going.
Yeah. And after that, I went to another school in Ville-la-Salle, and this school was really tough compared to Lachine High School. So when I go there, and when you are new youth, you come to a new school, you want to be tough. And for me, what's really important in my life, and I did a promise to myself, no one else is going to hurt me like my dad did. I'm going to be the boss. And so when I go to that school, I look around me, and what is the way to be the most popular guy, but the more tough guy in the school? So I look the drug dealer. They have probably 3 or 4 drug dealers in that school. And I decide to be a drug dealer and kick all those guys out and take the control of the school. Why not? It's only a 2,000 people school, I'm coming. Norm is coming. So I went to that school and I started to sell drugs. And like I said, I just kick out the guy and start to build like a little gang around me. And we started to sell drugs and different arcade in the city. And we started to sell drugs, lots of drugs on the southwest part of the Montreal area. And my consommation you just go up day after day, and hockey went out for a couple, went out after an injury and stuff like that. And so I go deeper and deeper in my drug stuff, and also I connect with a criminal group, a biker group, probably the group, but I'm not going to promote it this morning, but so I just connect with them to buy my drug directly to the source and not to another, guy.
In-between guy.
In-between guys. Yeah. And when I connect to the guys, they love me. They just take care of me. So I become like a prospect. I was not in the group, but I became like a prospect and just started to sell drugs more, have better price, more influence, bigger group, bigger gang around me. And my consommation just go up. So this picture is probably 14, something like that. My hair and my face. Whoa. 16 probably, so yeah. So I just grow up with that group. And, I think when you're born a leader, you are a leader, so on the good way or the bad way. And I think I was a leader. I have some leadership a little bit. And I grew up very fast, and I make a lot of money, make money to that group too. And to prove myself more, I want to take more responsibility in that group. So I start to do some sell some guns and weapons and do some traffic of weapons. Bring weapons from outside of Canada and Quebec and just spend all those. It was a short time, and after that, for me, it was not enough because my violence go up, and my consommation de drogue goes so high. I was taking probably in between $1,000 of drugs a day to $2,000 a day.
For your personal habit?
Personal, yeah, for me. And all the drugs I was taking is not the smooth one, it's not the hard one. The one who bring you more aggressive, So it was like this. And my violence, and when you have a lack of love from your dad and you don't feel everybody love you because your dad doesn't love you, you feel like everybody doesn't love you. And I want to take the control. My dream was to take control of Montreal about selling drugs. So I was young, but I have some dreams.
Ambitious.
A future. Yeah. And just to take the control of every little dealer and say to them, don't sell drugs to this man, my dad. It's weird, eh? It's in my brain, it's dans ma tête, là, mais. And I was so hurt inside, and so I struggle with suicide tendency because I didn't love myself. I didn't love what my dad did, so I did, pire que lui. He said that worse than him. So I didn't love myself. I tried to suicide myself like 3 times. And, I lived very struggled. Tried to stop drugs many, many times, probably 100 times. I don't know. And I go to at the end of my journey in that world, if you want, my goal was to become a hitman.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do it, you know.
I didn't do it. Let's be clear, he didn't do it.
Yeah. But just to reveal my heart, it was so broken, so...
So you can see right from an early age. Remember too, Pastor Normand had never heard about Christ and the gospel in that context at all. So God finds you though.
Yeah.
So how does God get to you when you're so far removed? You're in a lifestyle that is so trapping. You know, you're in bondage and you're blind to the truth. How did God find you?
Well, my wife, Dominique, she been born in Ville-Saint-Pierre too, you know. She lived in Ville-Saint-Pierre, the same thing than me. So we meet each other at the elementary school, grade 2 or 3. And we...
You dated?
We dated at grade 3. Seriously.
If you're in grade 3 here, not a good idea.
And at the end of grade 3, I just let Dominic go because, you know.
It wasn't going to work out, eh?
No, it doesn't work. And at grade 4, we come back together. Grade 5, you know, it was like this. Until I go to high school. When I go to high school, she was still in 6th grade. So I just say, well, you're too young now. I'm going on the highest level. She was there this morning. She was funny. But this is true anyway. So, but after a couple of years, we split at the age of 12. You know, I went to live. I still live in Ville-Saint-Pierre, but because I was going on the high school in La Salle, we just disconnect a bit. And for a couple of years, we disconnect. During that time, Dominique gave her life to Jesus. She discovered Jesus at that time. And many years after, for me, I think I was the age of 16 or 17, I think. Yeah, 17. She heard by my brother, my youngest brother, that I was alone. I was not anymore with my girlfriend. And Dominique heard about it and tried to connect with me. So she came in Montreal where I was living in Hochelaga Maisonneuve and started to talk with me. And, hey, Norm, how are you? And, you know, girls. You are. Anyway, and she gave me a little cassette. Yeah, I'm old. Yeah, a little cassette. And on that cassette, they have some testimony from the guy from Défi Jeunesse.
Teen Challenge.
So she gave me that cassette. And for me, I said, okay, thank you for the cassette. I put the cassette in my whatever. And I didn't want to know about the cassette. The only thing I want to know is about Dominique, you know. But I listened to the cassette when she went out of the house and my apartment at that time. And I started to listen those guys who give their testimony about, you know, they live the same life of me and they give this testimony. So it was kind of weird stuff, but it was okay. And, you know, I grew up with Dominique at a young age, so I know her family pretty well. And her dad is a gambler and alcoholic. And he was almost the same kind of man than my dad. And I hate my dad and I hate this guy too. Because I remember Dominique suffering about the relationship she's got with dad. And when I just connect again another time because we start to be together a bit, you know. And she was Christian and she was not at that church at that time. She left the church for 2 or 3 years to meet me, but she left the church. And could you imagine the chaos in the church? A young girl who loved Jesus go out of the church, meet a drug dealer, start to have some relationship with the drug dealer. She came to live at my home. It was like a commotion in the church. And I heard that a couple of years after, and they prayed for me. For 2 years, maybe 50% pray for me and Dominique. Anyway, it's another story. So I know my beaux-parents a lot. And the dad of Dominique, she was, like I said. And he was completely changed, different man. So when I started to talk with him, he said, yeah, God delivered me of gambling, alcohol. He was another man, really cool. Still have the same character a little bit, but, you know, different. And this is what, I think it was the first time I just saw something not weird, man. Wow, this is good for him, and this is good for Dominique. So it started to touch me. And at the same time, my belle-maman,
Your mother-in-law?
mother-in-law,
Yeah.
I don't remember, mother-in-law, she invited me to go to the church on Sunday morning. And you know, when your mother-in-law invites you, guys, you have no choice to say yes. If you want to keep a good relationship with your wife and anyway. So, and I just decided to go to the church. And I remember Dominique told me, this is Dominique on the picture. Yeah, nice hair, right? It's a full can of spray net every morning, seriously. Anyway, and she invited me to go to the church, and Dominic told me the church, it's cool. Yeah, for me, the church is a Catholic church. It's boring, you know. And cool, we have some good music at church, yeah. Or, you know, it's like, for me, it was not cool. Church, it's cool. Kids run everywhere, you know, and we have fun at church. I mean, I just said school before, right? At church. And so they invite me to go to the church, and in Ville-la-Salle, the church, l'Assemblée du Plein Évangile, it's a church in a mall, and
In the basement
of the mall. So they said to me, okay, this is the church. Where? In the basement. Oh, okay. So you feel weird a bit, you know, it's like what's that? So I remember to go down the stair, and it's not like just 3 steps, it's like you go down, and I feel like it's like a cavern, you know, so it's weird. And I remember the first usher I meet, he gave my hand, he said, hey, Norm. He said, no, he said, hi, are you Norm? I said, yeah. So who's that guy?
How does he know you?
Yeah, how does he know me? And, you know, I'm selling drugs, and I know cops sometimes are around, so who's that guy, you know? I am in the church, and he know my name. And it was weird, really weird. So I went inside the church, and that time period in 1989, everybody had all the men have a suit,
right?
3 pieces, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for me, I called that at that time les pingouins. I know it's not that, but for me it was like this. And for the ladies, they have no pants, you know, it's like the la robe until here, you know, really conservateur. And I came to that church, and for me it was my long hair like this, my, you know, my bicycle boots, my jeans, you know, my chain, and you know, my leather jacket with my tag, and you know, Harley and all that stuff, you know, and really stoned that morning, like every morning, like all day, like, you know.
Yeah.
And so I came to that church, I said, wow, that's weird. It's like, whoa. So everybody, they hands like this, you know, they sing, and some of them, they speak in tongues. You just come, what the heck is that? You know, you just feel weird. And so we go to my stepfather, mes beaux-parents, they were sitting on the second row all the time at the church, you know. So we went there, go in the front. And he was just beside the stage, and the band was on that side of the stage. So it was cool for me because I love music. So I just forgot everybody and connect with the band. So band, you have an impact on people. You don't know that, but you have an impact. And so I just connect with the band, and they have so many instruments, and it was cool. And I remember Pastor Mario Masca was preaching. You know, Mario Masca is an evangelist, and he was preaching that morning. And if you don't know Mario, he's got une habitude, habit, yeah. When he's preaching, he's pointing, you know, like this, and he's preaching. And I remember I was sit like on this side, he was pointing this side, and I feel like his finger go to me like this. Seriously, I say, who's that guy? You know, and at the end of the message, I didn't understand a word. Seriously, I didn't understand. Well, it makes sense sometimes, but it's weird, you know. You don't know Jesus, you don't know God, you don't know.
You've never heard the message before.
No, I never heard the message. I heard what my, you know, Dominic told me, a little cassette, peu, you know, but not too much, you know. And at the end, he just make a call, and he asked if somebody wants to accept Jesus. And I was sit down and said, no. Seriously, I'm not gonna. He asked to
raise your hand, kind of thing.
Raise your hand. And I said, no way, no, I'm not gonna do it, you know. And like a good pastor, he repeated and repeated and repeated. So when your pastor is repeating a call, just be patient, because we have probably a Norm somewhere in the church waiting for that call. You know, but that's true. That's true. And he just repeated. And finally, I don't know why, I just raised up my hand. Seriously, I didn't know why. After you think about it, why? But it's a God thing. Anyway, just lift my hand and just put down. He said, I saw your hand. and after that, just he said, okay, for everybody who rise up hands, just stand up, please. So for me, he said, everybody. So it was more than one, more than me. So I just go up like this. It was the second row, remember that? So I was just looking like this. Behind me, nobody this side. Nobody this side. He's a liar, man. He's not cool, you know. So
everybody was somebody, right?
So I was like that, and he did another call. He said, well, for everybody stand up. I said, no, you are a liar. I'm alone, man. You're just and he said, I'm going to ask you to come in the front. So in my interior, inside of me, I said, no way. Not that time. He's not going to get me, you know. It's like, and I could just look on my right side, and you have Dominic, mother, and father. Go. I felt like that, you know. I know they didn't do it. They were praying probably, but I just felt like, no. Okay. So I go in the front, and seriously, I went to the front, and he did the prayer with me, and I accept Jesus. And I remember this morning, at the end of the prayer, I just felt, well, weird a bit, and how you said, dégelé? Unfroze of my drug in the morning. On ne dit pas ça en anglais. We don't say that in English. Dégelé, we could say that in French, but in it, defrosted. Yeah, something. Anyway, so, and this is the way I give my life to Jesus. Well, probably after that, I give my life 50 times after. Because seriously, I was felt so guilty about many things in my life. But during 1 month, I was just a Jesus freak, for real, just in fire for God. And I went to the church every message, every réunion, all meetings, you know, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. We have a course for the young, the starter, you know, for the young Christian. One day, the mardi, I think the Tuesday. And Friday with the youth and the prayer meeting and the women's ministry things and all that stuff. Everything passed, you know, I was just want to go to the church. But during that 1 month, I still continue to use drugs. Not at the church. I think I have a respect for God, seriously. But when I came back home, I just party a bit, you know, and read my Bible and just woo-hoo. So it was like this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know nothing else than, you know. So I remember one night I was sit down in my living room with my Bible, with my beer probably. I don't remember the details, but I remember one thing. God spoke to my heart and said, Norm, you know I love you. I said, oh, yes, I know. I was so, wow, God loved me. You know, I discovered the love of a father, a real love.
Wow.
Who replaced the love of my dad, didn't give it to me, you know.
Yeah.
And that time, just God said, you know, I love you, Norm, but I said, oh, yeah, you have to make a choice. Okay, God, what choice? You need to choose between me and your drugs. Come on. That's not fair, Lord. You can't ask me this. You know, I'm using drugs for maybe 7 years now and a lot of drugs. And, you know, it's like something who just helped me to live, you know. Anyway, and I said to God, I said, Lord, look, if you don't help me, I'm going to choose the drug. I love you, Lord. I want to follow you. But if you don't help me, nothing's going to change. I tried so many times to stop and nothing's happened, you know. So I just said to God, Lord, I make your promise tonight. I'm not going to using drug tonight. But you need to help me or I'm going to choose the other way. So I just finished my prayer, opened the TV, looked at the TV. Is it 7 o'clock at night? I'm that kind of guy who sleep over 1 o'clock every night, even today. And I wake up, walk in the house. I say, well, I'm not gonna tough, I'm not gonna resist. So to respect my promise to God, I went to the bed, sleep. That's it. The day after, I wake up in the morning, go take my shower, prepare my lunch, grab my stuff and go work because I have a job a front to cover me from my
while you're selling drugs on the side. Yeah.
And I was going on a chantier de construction, so a construction place, and they have 700 people over there, and I was selling drugs over there too. Hey, why not? 700, come on, make money home and over there, So I was going to over there. I remember came to that job in the morning, and just before I go to that job, I always, take like a joint and smoke and do some drugs before. And I realized that I have nothing with me. Realized then I didn't take drug this morning. And I realized that I don't have the taste in me, the desire to do it. So I just feel the joy of God come to me, the love of God. I don't know, it was so amazing that morning. So my smile was like this, And I remember some guys come to me and say, hey, Norm, do you have some drugs with you this morning? I said, no, I forgot everything at home. Well, man, you look so weird this morning. You have a nice smile. You took some very good drug this morning. I said, yes. You can't imagine what I took this morning. And it was a month after my conversion. I completely set free from drugs. And I never touched drugs again after.
Right. So friends, over the coming months, we're going to talk a little bit more. And you can come back tonight at 6 o'clock at the Lighthouse and hear the rest of Pastor Norman's story. But how many understand, I really feel like it's God's appointment that he be with us for this chapter of re.Imagine to launch a French church. Because I've talked many times to you, and I know and you understand my heart, and you would understand Pastor Norman's. Everybody in Montreal should have the opportunity to choose Christ. Everyone should have that opportunity. Pastor Norman grew up in Quebec, in Montreal here, and never knew the gospel, never heard the truth of what Jesus did for him, and that he could have him as his personal Savior. For us, as a local church, we're saying that's not acceptable. We want to be a part of change. And so biggest part of what we're doing with re.Imagine in phase 1 is we are going to start a French church. And I'm praying already that God is going to lay it on the hearts of some of you to be the workers. That you're going to go and you're going to be there with him, helping us start a church. Where's it going to be in Montreal? We're not even sure yet. We're praying over the city to say, Lord, where would you have us start this French congregation? We will go where the need is. We want to go where people don't have a witness of who Jesus Christ is. How many want to be a part of something like that? At one level, if you can't give or anything, you can pray. You can pray. Some of you can go. Many of you can give. But this is about our mission. God gave us a mission. He didn't give a church first and then a mission. He had a mission and then he gave it a church. Let's put our hands together and thank Pastor Norman. Bless you, man. I just feel like if we want to capture one thing from this morning, is simply this. I think God's just calling us as a church to just love Montreal. I know there's plenty of reasons, if you want a list of reasons why you couldn't love Montreal. I mean, we could talk about the driving, the construction on the roads, the politics and everything else. I love this about Christ. He sees the people. Harassed, helpless, sheep without shepherds, and he walks towards them. That's what he sees. That's what he envisions. Lord, send out workers. And friends, re.Imagine is about a brand new generation of people coming to Christ. Right now, this is the fact in Canada. Teens and young adults are leaving the church in droves. Something is going on at Evangel because they're coming here in droves right now. Do you know the average age of Evangel now is between 25 and 36? It keeps going down. Why? Because something is waking up in people's hearts. This is not normal, though, in Canada. I'm letting you know. We have pastors who call us saying, how do you get so many young adults and kids and university students coming to your church? Because they're all leaving ours. Something's going on here. I'll tell you this, though. If you're old here, you got to love those who are younger. You got to believe in them. You got to encourage them. You got to love them. We could get judgmental about how they dress or what they listen to, but it is important that they feel loved. And if you're young here, you better honor those who are older than you. Learn from them. Love them. Listen to them. They have something to share that's of great value. If you don't know whether you're young or old, you're old. You're old. See, friends, some of you have grandchildren, some of you have children, you have their friends. And friends, we will not be that type of church that holds on to the past while our kids go to hell. No way. Not on my watch, not on your watch, I know it. We are about reimagining what God can do through us when we are willing to march towards the issue and bring the message of the power of the gospel to people who are far from God. I think that's worthwhile. I think that is worthwhile. I think it's a big, bold vision, as Pastor Joe mentioned earlier. It is. We can do it together, though, friends. Individually, it's too much. But together, we can change. I believe it. We can change the city. I do believe that. Friends, I'll conclude with this. And in a moment, Pastor Joe's going to come and lead us in communion because we're going to celebrate, and I think it's so appropriate, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ this morning. Because without that, we've got nothing. I've got nothing to offer you. Everyone's journey looks a little different. Pastor Norman shared his journey to Christ, but everybody has a story who knows Jesus. I know the moment Jesus arrested my heart. I know the moment when I woke up from my slumber and he changed me. I know that moment when I came to the end of myself and I didn't have the answers. But in Christ, I found a way forward. So on March 17th, we're going to gather in this room as a church family. And my challenge is to you, everyone who calls Evangel their home church. My challenge is for you to pray over these coming weeks. Pray, God, what would you have us give, or what would you have me give over the course of 3 years to this re.Imagine campaign? No guilt. If you feel guilt, don't give a thing. It's not about that. It is about allowing God to talk to your heart about what he's already entrusted you with. And whatever you choose to do, on March 17th, you got a commitment card on the way in here, right? In that envelope. It's right in that envelope. Fill out that commitment card. Shelley and I have already done this. We put our first fruits offering right in there, which is the first part of our commitment to re.Imagine. And we've made our commitment for the next 3 years, above our tithe, what we're going to give to this church, to see a French church started, to see some girls set free from the sex trade, to see an orphanage built, to see this building repositioned to reach this city. Yeah, we're in. We're in. I'm asking you to get into. It's a challenge. It's amazing, though, when you pray to the Lord of the harvest, how many times he taps you on the shoulder and says, you're part of the answer. You're part of the answer. Let me pray. Father, in this moment, as we as a great group of people here just focus on the work of your son, Jesus. God, he's our hero. Nobody was more courageous than Christ. No one led better than he did. No one sacrificed more than he did. No one loved us more than he did. When we were helpless and harassed and we were sheep without shepherds, you came looking for us, God. And God, we are just beggars here telling other beggars where we found the food. We're not better than other people in Montreal. Certainly not. We're not smarter. We're not superior. God, we were broken people that we found a God who could put us back together again. And God, we want to be a part of, as a local church, to make a lot of noise in the city of seeing lives put back together. We celebrate with Pastor Norman. We celebrate with everybody's story in this room, a story of grace and redemption because of your son, Jesus. Help us to reimagine what you could do through us to change this world. Amen.